And off we'll go. Okay, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us on the IEA monthly webinar. Reminder that these webinars are free for you to attend and host as a member of the IEA. So if you're interested in hosting an upcoming webinar, I will throw my contact information in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me and I will get you in touch with the person that coordinates those. We have a lot of openings coming up in 2024, so do be thinking about that. Or if someone in your executive association would be a good fit, I'd be glad to have a conversation with them. My name is Lisa Jordan. I'm the managing director of the IEA, and I'm also the executive director of the Charlotte Executives Association. I've met many of you and lots of familiar faces and some new faces on this call, so really glad to have you here. Looks like we have a strong Vancouver presence today, which is great. Lots of support for Tamara, our speaker. Before I introduce Tamara and hand it over to her, I just wanted to put in a quick plug for the IEA conference, especially those Vancouver folks on the call. You're familiar with the IEA conference. We were thrilled to be with you, VanX, last year for the conference, and we're excited to announce that next year in 2024, we're going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada on September 24th through the 26th. At the beautiful Tuscany Hotel, which is just behind Bally's off the Strip. And we're really excited to be putting on a great conference for you all. And so that's something we'd love for you to pencil on your calendar and save the date and be looking out for more information on that next IEA conference. So with that, I am going to introduce Tamara, who, as I mentioned, her business is a member of the Vancouver Executives Association. And Tamara has 20 years of experience in the design, architecture, and implementation of SharePoint solutions. This experience is coupled with 15 years of experience as a business analyst focusing on process engineering, process design, and integrating technology to improve or enhance business process and business results. Tamara is experienced in working with individuals and teams from diverse business backgrounds, technical experience, and comfort levels with technology, and specializes in acting as a bridge between the business and the technologies being implemented to produce better business outcomes. From initial requirements, design and customization, to governance and process optimization, Tamara has the skill and experience to guide you through the process to a successful result. And with that, I hand it over to Tamara Hegen.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited about our topic today. Today, we're going to be talking about Microsoft Teams. A job worth doing is worth doing together. This isn't going to be a presentation-heavy session. I'm going to be showing you a lot of in-system new tools and features that I think are going to build your business and help push the tools that you have for collaboration to the next level. So please feel free if you have questions at any point, raise your hand or ask in the QA, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you might have. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is the evolution of Microsoft Teams. It is more than just a meeting platform. It started out as the successor to Skype and Skype for Business and was really just intended for meeting and collaborations, audio and video meetings, real-time texts in private and public channels, and optional voice calling. However, over time, Microsoft Teams evolved to become a complete collaboration platform that integrates with many of the other tools and features you already are paying for and you already own. It's actually linked to SharePoint Online. So when you share documents in a team or in a chat with others within, it's actually stored in a SharePoint site. No information is actually stored in Microsoft Teams except for your chat history. So it integrates there. It also provides access to different apps and tools right from the Teams interface. You can use Microsoft Planner or other M365 applications, and you can actually connect it to the Power Platform so that workflows can notify you of activities or provide you with information directly within your Teams interface. Now, when we build teams in Microsoft Teams, you need to know more than just the name of a team. Often we go, okay, well, I'm just going to put together accounting. But when you start to create a real team in Microsoft Teams, you want to ask yourself a few questions. What is our intention with this? Is it just a way for geographically dispersed individuals to communicate? Who will be managing that team? So who identifies who should join and who should leave um, the team? And then who are the members of the team that will collaborate? And then you want to ask yourself, which tabs or apps do you want to use for a particular team? And we're going to walk through a fair bit of the different options that are available to you. And I think you'll be surprised. Microsoft has gotten a lot better at being less proprietary. So even though they're going to have a number of apps and solutions that are very specific to Microsoft, Teams actually integrates with a number of other systems from third parties that are not directly involved with Microsoft, from Asana to Jira to even Google Docs. You can actually leverage Teams as a way to bring different technologies together in a centralized platform. So that's where we talk about fully integrated with the Power Platform. So that includes Power Apps and having apps that can be leveraged and used right through your team's interface, workflows, notifications, tasks, and even approvals that can be done right through your team's interface. So even though you have varying technologies and solutions, Teams can be a platform that brings everybody together and helps to set that single source of truth for your organization. This is not your grandfather's calling platform anymore. So with that, let's get into the live demo where the really exciting components of this project process and project are going to be. So here, this is my Microsoft Teams. Within Microsoft Teams, typically you'll see this specific configuration of apps. I want to let you know that's just the default. You actually have the ability within the Teams Admin Center to actually set up different types of apps along the side based on a role within your organization. For example, in one of the clients that we worked with to implement Microsoft Teams, they have frontline workers that man a desk in a number of buildings that they manage. And those people do shift schedules and things like that. They don't have calendars or calling. Instead, they actually have the shift scheduling app here available so they can check what shift they're working, who else is working with them, and they have chat and then their Teams area. So there is an amount of customization that you can do and actually assign that using global policies to only a particular segment of your workforce, depending on kind of tools that they might need. Now here I have a sample team. So these are all different teams within Spot Solutions, but we're going to focus on this sample team that I've created here. Within this team, every time you create a team, you'll see that you automatically get a general channel. That's by default. That's where you're going to, all of your members and all of your owners are going to access. And you can have different chat, you can put different information directly into your team's chat area that's accessible and available to everybody within. Similar to other types of messaging apps, with Teams, I can respond, I can delete, I can pin. If I'm working with somebody else, I can reply and actually see that threaded conversation. That information, this conversational information, is stored in Microsoft Teams and can be extracted or looked at if you ever needed to for legal purposes or audit purposes. Take a look at what kind of conversations are happening within this space. But in addition to the general team channel, I also have the ability to create additional channels. And these channels can have customized content, customized tabs, and can have a different membership. The one thing to remember is somebody needs to be a member of the general team before that they can go into one of the other team channels. Now, team channels are a little bit different than the general channel because when I go to manage those channels, I have the opportunity to change these. I can set a moderator. So if I want to have this a very tightly controlled channel, I can actually assign someone specific to be a moderator for that channel and review and approve posts and conversations. Microsoft Teams is also unique in that I can invite outside third parties to collaborate with me on a team using a guest account. This is important because historically, when you had somebody from another organization, a partner organization collaborating, you had to spend some money and some time to set up an account for them within your organization to give them access and license them to access older tools like Skype. Here, if I've invited them as a guest, they're using their own credentials to log in, and they're only allowed to have access to the areas of my teams that I have specifically invited them to. And I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like in just a moment. Now, I can decide that everybody, either internal or external, can start a conversation in the chat of Teams, or I can say only people from my organization can start a new chat thread, but guests are allowed to respond and collaborate on that thread. So it gives you a little bit more control. I also have the opportunity to start seeing some analytics. You'll see this isn't a very used channel, so there aren't a ton of analytics here, but I can also click this button to see analytics across all channels. And so what that's going to let me know, and this is just a demo team, so it doesn't have a ton of analytics to view, but it allows me to start to see how people are engaged. And I can see how they're engaged from a 7, 30, or 90-day time scale. And this could really help me to understand what people are using this particular team and a particular channel for. I also, right up here at the top, can take a look at who are owners and what level of responsibility they have, as well as guests and others that are members and or guests, and they have less responsibility. They're able to do less of the management of my team. When I take a look specifically at the channels rather than the analytics, I can see which ones I can show, and I also have private channels. These private channels aren't specifically showing for everybody else unless you're specifically in that channel. So a private channel allows you to have a segregated, for example, we did one where we have a team called accounting, and there's the general accounting where the overarching accounting team can have a conversation. And then we have several secure channels, one for accounts payable, one for accounts receivable, and one for audit and taxation. The members of those sub or private channels are specific to those working groups. Additionally, we had a management channel for them where the senior leadership could, from the finance department, could collaborate on various activities and functions that they're doing. Instead of creating a different team for each of those functions, we simply created channels within the same team. And that allowed us to keep the shared information secure and only accessible to the individuals that needed it, but also in one place. So it was easy to move that content around and easier to kind of understand it. So generally speaking, that's sort of what you see in a team in Microsoft Teams. For most of you, you may be familiar with Teams only from a calendar perspective, where I can create a new meeting, I can join a meeting, and I can see my calendar as it's integrated with Outlook or whatever your particular mail tool is. And that is always available. I can even create a new meeting right here in my calendar with all of the information and leveraging my schedule assistant. And this is going to create a calendar invite both in Microsoft Teams, and also will send an invitation from Outlook because that's the application we use for our email. So it's fully integrated with all of these items. And you can actually set a lobby. So that might be similar as Zoom and as a couple of the other types of video conferencing or phone conferencing tools. So you can actually create a lobby to say, hey, people in my organization can join the meeting right away, but guests that are coming sit in the lobby until I'm ready to invite them in and make sure that they can. And you also, similar to other meeting platforms, have the ability to automatically record calls or to set a recording during that call. When you look at your meeting options, each meeting can have customized options, though your IT department or whomever is implementing your Microsoft Teams can also set default policies that will set these settings for you so you don't have to remember it every time on your own. So you can have it announce when people come and leave. You can set your presenters to specific people, people in my organization, only my organization and co-organizers, um, allowing mic and record automatically. So you can set all of those items within your team's meeting invitation. Now, I'm not going to create that here. Now, you'll also see calls. Now, what I want you to notice here is I have a big white space right in this section that looks like it belongs to something. If you choose to implement Teams with Teams calling, which is a voice over IP phone calling solution, your dial pad will sit right here. So typically, if you install Teams, anybody who is a contact within my contacts, I can actually call directly from Teams because I've created a connection with them and they're a contact with me. What I can't do is dial a 1-800 number or initiate a telephone call with somebody that I don't already have a contact with. And so that's another aspect that Teams does offer if you want to look at centralizing all of your calling or all of those sorts of features. What I really love about Teams is I don't need to choose to do that voice over IP in order for Teams to still be a fully functioning meeting, video, and audio calling solution. But I do have that option there. Another interesting component is right here under files. So what you're going to see here is there's my OneDrive. I now have access to all of my OneDrive files. In OneDrive, I can see files that are actually linked. So for example, this is a OneDrive link to Spot training resources inside our SharePoint. Because I've created that relationship in OneDrive, it's available to me through Teams. I can also see any shared files and who shared those files with me, whether they're recorded meetings for things that I've done or other scheduled documents, and I can filter those in a few different ways. I can look for items that I shared to others versus items that were shared with me, and I can actually filter by a name or a person and use some of those tools. If I have content that I've actually set as a favorite within my SharePoint, OneDrive, or any other Microsoft 365 solution, all those favorites will show here. And I just grabbed one to kind of give you an example. I also have my online recycle bin. So for all of you guys, you likely have a recycle bin on your desktop and you're used to that being the way that you do stuff. Here, I also have an option for anything that was digitally deleted from SharePoint, from Microsoft Teams, from OneDrive. I can actually access this recycle bin. This recycle bin stays in place for 100 or for 93 days first. That's because 93 days is the maximum amount of time within any 3-month period. So you can have the recycle bin for 3 months, at which point it self-clears and goes to the second stage recycle bin, which your IT administrator has a further 30 days to be able to restore. So you have a total of 123 days from getting rid of that. Now, a couple new features, which are pretty fun. I can browse files by people. So it's actually going to show me individuals that are in my contacts that have shared content with me, and I can actually find the content that was shared with me via the Microsoft Teams platform right here. And I can also find files by meetings. And this one I think is pretty critical. When you record meetings, sometimes you don't even know where the recording went. You can't find it. You're busy trying to get back some information that was shared with you in a meeting. Here, I can just come in to the Files tab, browse by meetings. I can see the date, time, who were the participants, what was the meeting called, and what was the outcome. So here's a document, here's a video, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And I can actually get all of that information. Finally, even though I'm in Microsoft Teams, down here on my quick access bar, these are actually SharePoint sites that I have favorited. And this brings me right into the default document library for that site. And I can go back and see all of the different document libraries at that site if I need to retrieve files. Now, this is only quick access to the files. In a moment, I'm going to show you how you can actually provide your team with actual access to the site itself, which is pretty cool. Before I move on, I know I've covered a fair bit because we only have an hour here. Does anybody have any questions about what I've shared with you so far? Awesome. Okay. So now, how do I make my one part of my team even better for my teams? What I'm going to find here are my posts in the main, the Files tab, which is going to show you any files associated with this. Now you'll notice that I can add more files here, and this is general. So that's telling me that this is it in the general tab. If I went to maintenance and I click on files, I'm going to see the maintenance folder for those files. So they are separated, and any permissions or security that you place on them is respected by the system. The other thing you're going to see is right up here, or sometimes you'll find it in the ellipses, but right up here, it's open in SharePoint. So if I click on that, it's actually going to open that document library in my browser right in my SharePoint site. And I can tell that Spot on SharePoint is associated with a Microsoft team because of this team symbol right here. And that allows me to go to the Teams channels if I want. If I go back by one, what I'll see here is that this document library was set as the default library for my Microsoft team. And I can see content that was just uploaded to SharePoint, or I can see the folders by channel. And you'll notice that there's a little lock on each of these. That's letting me know that that is a secured channel and not everybody will be able to access the content that you can see there. Now, I also have a message history. This was done as a backup, and it's just a history of some of the content messages when we did a backup and moved this over. Now, that only gives us so much functionality. Right now, it just feels like a bit of a message platform, and I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to get some of that extra collaboration. And that's where this crazy plus sign comes. I can select add a tab, and all of a sudden, I have the option to integrate a ton of other tools and applications that I already have. I can add Microsoft Project. I can add SharePoint. I can add different Microsoft apps. But down here, we start to see some of the other types of apps that can actually be added. I want to be clear, when you're setting up your Microsoft Teams in your organization, IT is able to identify which apps are okay and which apps are not okay, what you're licensed for and what you're not. So what you'll actually see within these different app areas is going to be different depending on your organization, but you have the ability from everything from Kahoots, if you do use that as a team building exercise, polls, all kinds of different tools that you can actually add. So in this case, I want to add a whiteboard, and I'm going to call this the training whiteboard. I'm going to post a note in the channel about this tab. I'm going to hit save. So now I have a training whiteboard, and anybody in the group is going to be able to come in here, set a timer for how long we have, and actually whiteboard activities. So when we're working as a group, whether we're in the same office or whether we're geographically dispersed, we can actually whiteboard our concepts using sticky notes. And you might assign a different color sticky note to each person, put in any of the content, and we can actually start mapping out a process, discussing procedures, working on a document, or even assigning tasks. Whiteboarding isn't as much about assigning tasks as it is about a great brainstorming opportunity. So if I do want to start looking at assigning tasks, I might look at something like Planner, and I might choose a different planner tool that I work with in my group. I might just go and tasks by planner and to do. And I want to create a new plan. So I want to call this training tasks. Or if I already have a planner that I've already been using for this group and I'm just setting up here, I can actually look at existing plans. So there's my spot on SharePoint, and I can choose to set that plan up. And right away, I'm going to have all of the buckets that I've identified for this plan, and I can look at them in a number of different formats. So I can see it by bucket, which is predictably, yes, I've got it, a Kanban board. So if you're not familiar with a Kanban board, the idea is that each task has a bunch of different information associated with it, including attachments and other items. And as that task is completed, I can actually move it through and reassign it and set due dates and put different information in. So I can work with my team on this, and I can see it as a list, a Kanban board, a chart, or a calendar. And I actually have the ability with my whole team to be able to work in this board and receive notifications when tasks are assigned to me. So typically, if I want to have a Kanban board or a planner tool here, I might have it set up so that whenever a task is assigned here in the planner, a note goes out calling out at Tamara Hegen, this task has been assigned to you right here in my Teams. Now, what does that do for me? This button here called activity, when somebody responds to something I've said, or when I'm mentioned in an area, or when I have an action or activity to do, it will show up within the activities. So here's an example. So those are reactions and messages that I've had, but here's an example of a productivity tool. We have a workflow for approving certain items. The approvals come up here. So this lets me know that this has been submitted for approval. So now my job, and it's a little bit funny because typically you wouldn't be the person submitting something for approval and approving it. This is just for demonstration purposes. But I get this notification that I've got an approval request. Here's the information. I can actually open this invoice right from the SharePoint site that it was uploaded to, and I can decide on, so it was requested by me, and now I need to respond to this item. I can say, give my comment. Under more actions, if I don't want to reject it, but I think there's a problem with it or it needs to be canceled, I can cancel it. If I'm still waiting for more information, I can select follow up, and that's going to send a message to the requester saying, hey, I need more information before I can make a decision about this activity. Or I can reassign this task. So if I'm on vacation and I have Teams on my phone mobile, I actually have the option to completely do all of these tasks mobile right from my device. And I can reassign that and say, hey, I'm on vacation. I need Cy to cover me on this one. And he's going to be the approver for that. But if I'm comfortable with it and I do want to approve, I'm going to select the approve. And that's actually going to submit that. And so here it is, completely approved. And I actually just got notification on my phone as well as up here in activity that that has reached its final approval. So as you can see, I do this a lot to demonstrate how this works. What I have here is my approvals. So right here, these are approvals I've received. And here are requests for approval that I've sent. And so I could select one of those and follow up and say, hey, haven't you done that? I can also export this information for audit purposes and audit trail. So if there's ever a question of what the approval process was, I can actually see that. And when I click on a particular item, it actually will give you all of the comments, everything that has been done, and I can save that approval as a PDF again for audit purposes, however I might need to. I also have the ability to start a new request for approval directly from Microsoft Teams outside of a standard workflow that you might see. You'll see here, and Spot Solutions doesn't use Adobe Sign or DocuSign, but if you do, those are immediately available under approvals, and all you need to do is sign in with your credentials that you would normally use to access these two tools, and you can do all of your Adobe Sign or your DocuSign activities and workflow them directly from the Teams interface. And that's what I was saying earlier about Microsoft has moved away from a completely proprietary model. That doesn't mean that they aren't going to encourage you to use the Microsoft Approvals app or to use some of these tools, because these tools have already been paid for. When you implement these systems, especially if you already have an Azure tenant, if you're using SharePoint Online or any of these or Power Platform or these other tools, you're often already paying for a lot of these applications, and you can implement a really robust platform beyond just a calling feature or a meeting feature without having to create extra spend. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people aren't aware of when they're looking at Microsoft Teams. Now, you'll see that I have 3 new activity reports at the top, and that's letting me know what the final status. So John has approved this one. It was requested by me. John has approved it. And now I get that final approval status for each of these ones that have been completed. So it's a really key way. And again, you can export that. So none of the content or none of what you're doing here in something like approvals is lost. So all of the activity right here is activity, but if I hit those dots, I can also filter. So if I'm looking for something in particular, I can filter on that. So I filtered on a name and I'm seeing the conversations and any announcements from that that mention that. Or I could filter on a particular type of activity. And I can also say, hey, I just want to see unread ones. I don't want to see the whole history all the time. I only want to see a few things. Of course, you're also aware of chat and how chat can work within here. So you have chat from meetings as well as chat from individuals. Now, what happens when you, like me, I'm a consultant. I work with a lot of other companies, and a lot of them also have Microsoft Teams. They may not want to do their collaboration in my environment. They may want me to be collaborating in their environment so that they own all of the product of that collaboration and work. So right up here, I'm at Spot Solutions. I need to re-sign in to this one here, but my Bird Construction and my Pender Fund accounts are fully active. So if I click on one of these, I can see the teams that I've been given access to within my client's environment and the chat activity within my client's environment. What's really amazing about this is if somebody contacts me at Spot Solutions and I'm currently in as a guest in somebody else's tenant, there's actually going to be a little number that pops up here on activity on another account, and I can click on that and actually seamlessly move back and forth between them. When you get something like this, where I need to sign back in, I can click on that and say sign in, and that's because my password was recently changed for this client. Um, And as you can see, MFA is fully available through the Teams platform. So whether you use the Authenticator app or other MFA tools, you have full access to MFA. And so now I can switch to another account and go back to my Spot Solutions. and figure out what's going on with my C-SPAN later. But I have access to these. Similar to other calling tools and meeting planning tools, I can say, am I in the office or remote? And it will by default already know if I'm in a meeting, if I'm presenting, or I can set any of these. I also have the option to set a particular status for a specific duration of time. So if I don't want to forget to say I'm available in 3 hours and I'm really busy and I'm focused, I can set hey, I'm in a meeting for the next 3 hours, and everybody will automatically know what's happening for me within there. And if I want to add any activity on my other accounts, that's where I'll see it, as well as see the other settings for how I want to work. I've got the download the mobile app. I can Zoom, and I'm currently using the new Teams experience. And I'm typically using the new Teams experience because as a consultant, I want to know what all the most current features and tools are going to be available. The biggest difference I've noticed in the new Teams experience is it's much easier to switch through other accounts and other platforms that you may have. So I can add a new account to give me access to a Microsoft team within an organization that I'm consulting with, or I can be invited as a guest. And so for both Bird Construction and Pender Fund, it's actually Hegen at Spot Solutions that has been invited to their environments as a guest. So this gives me a tremendous amount of ability to communicate, collaborate, and sort of build out a single source. Again, I have additional apps that I can add along the side if allowed. So you can add tabs inside a particular team, or you can add, if there's a tool or feature that you use frequently, for example, perhaps you want to have Microsoft Stream, which is a video tool. And here's a bunch of the different videos from my organization. I can upload a new video, I can create a new recording, or I can create a new playlist. And by putting that right there, and again, this is one of those things that you actually all already have access to. Its Stream is part of any E3 or E5 license with Microsoft that you may have, but a lot of people don't even know it's there. So I said I want to create a new playlist, and now it's asking me, what am I going to name my playlist, and where do I want to save it? To my own personal playlists, or do I want to put that into one of my SharePoint sites and MS Teams? So in this case, Spot on SharePoint is my team. And when I hit create, I'm going to have both my SharePoint side and my team side syncing on that. So now that I've said I want to create a playlist, I can start adding new items to that playlist. And I can go from the SharePoint site, or I can go to my own files if I have videos that I want to upload. So here, for example, is the ability management training. So I'm going to select that from my playlist, and that's going to add that right into the playlist area for everybody. So Microsoft Teams provides us with a lot of opportunities to really build something that is going to exceed anybody's expectation about what a calling platform is for. And you can also create templates so that you have a standardized sense. When somebody requests a new team for a new purpose, you have a standardized set of tools that are available. And I like to call that yes, but. My standard template is the minimum required for a new team, but an owner of a team may have additional collaboration requirements, may have a team that wants to work in some extra tools. I can also come in here and just add my SharePoint site directly in so that they can access it. Now, sometimes if you didn't know that you had a SharePoint site, then what might happen is you don't even know what you don't know. But here, I can say, yeah, I'm going to add Spot on SharePoint, or I could choose any other site and just put the link to the SharePoint page or the document library. And I can say, I want to go right here. And I'm going to save that. And so here is the spot training environment. I've got a clock counting up. I know what temperature it is in different places. We have offices. I have access to all of my document libraries and other examples. So I can go in and I can actively work in SharePoint from Microsoft Teams. So for those people who have often said, I don't want to have too many tabs open, this can be a way that you can track and flow information and not lose it. And you always have that opportunity to open it in SharePoint. And you also have that opportunity to export any content in here to Power BI for charting and graphing if it's a list, or export it to Excel or CSV for lists or libraries. Now we're at about 12:42 and I know we have a hard stop. Well, 12:42 my time. I know we have a hard stop. So I just wanted to take a minute and see if there were any questions. Does anybody have an idea that they're like, okay, but can it do this? Is there anything that you guys would like to know more about?
I'm checking the chat and it doesn't look like we have any comments yet. Is there anyone that wants to chime in or have any questions for our expert here?
All right.
Hi,
Well,
this is Ina. Sorry.
no.
You've been talking about the Microsoft Teams so well, and it has a lot of functionalities. How much is it? How much is a subscription?
So subscription packages for Microsoft Teams do vary by organization, and you may already have access to it, but let me just pull up the pricing. So for Microsoft Teams Essentials, which is just the baseline Microsoft Teams application, you're looking at about $4 per user per month. If you get Microsoft, and now there are annual subscriptions as well. You can get Microsoft Business Basic, which has a lot of these functionalities, almost all of these functionalities, and that's $6 per user per month. And then the tent pole is Microsoft 365 Business Standard, which is $10.62 per user per month. I'd like to point out that in some cases, depending on your existing Microsoft licensing, that may be included. So if you're an E5 license user, you may have a Teams license included in the licensing package that Microsoft has provided. The $4 per month, the sort of least expensive version, provides you with unlimited group meetings for up to 30 hours, up to 300 participants per meeting, 10 gigabytes of cloud storage per user, phone and web support, unlimited chat, file sharing tasks and polling, data encryption for meetings, calls, and files, live captioning, whiteboard, access to all of the collaborative apps. If you went to the second tier, you would get not just the Microsoft Teams, but that $6 per month actually gives you Teams, Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Outlook, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint as the whole package. And that's their Business Basic, and their Business Essential will give you all of that and Publisher and Access as well. As well as unlimited attendee and register. So with the business standard, you also get the ability to host webinars. So I'll show you that because it's actually pretty cool. So if I want to do a new webinar, it's different than a standard meeting. So with new webinars, I basically give it a name and I'm going to actually start to say who are the organizers, presenters, and is it private or public? We almost always make it public because we do a monthly webinar through Teams. You can add external presenters as well as presenters from your organization. Then you set up, okay, I'm going to say, sure. And we're just going to set it up like this for now. We're not going to do a lot of the others, but I'm just going to save that. That's going to start a process here. And Microsoft gives us a lot in this. So then I can actually add oh, I got to go to the details. I've got to add my presenter. So now we're presenters. I'm going to save and send invites. That only sends invites to presenters to put it into their calendar. So now that I have this, I can actually edit each of our profiles. And I can add a blurb. And I can do that for each of my presenters. And this is important because, and then I get into theming. So for us at Spot Solutions, we're going to want to set it up so that it looks and feels a little bit more like our organization. And so now I've got that. And then I've got my registration information. So I can preview the email somebody gets sent when you're registered for this webinar. Here's your blurb about it. We're looking forward to seeing you. So it automatically does that. And once I'm done, it's actually going to allow me to get reports on all the people who came and any information that I asked them to register. So when I say publish site, and this comes with your business standard, Microsoft actually provides me with an example. This is the link I can send out to others, and they can actually come in here. And obviously, as a presenter, I wouldn't be registering, but then they can register to this online event, and it completely encapsulates. And all of your details and everything else that you would have are right there, and it's automatically part of what you can do through Microsoft Teams if you want to. So that's a feature that only comes through the business standard, but with business basic, you can also do town halls, live events, and standard meetings. So you can schedule your regular types of meetings as well as these kind of specialized meetings. So town halls and live events are very similar. The difference is live events tend to be more streaming video. That's sort of, if you've ever been to one of those online events from Microsoft or things like that, whereas town halls are actually intended to get information. So I've got 500 employees and there's some big changes and we want to talk about them and have that town hall. So it allows you to do that. So you have those available to you through the business basic. It also allows absolutely everything from essentials, plus you're not actually limited in the number of hours for meetings.
Hey, Tamara, there was a question in the chat, and they asked, could I have a single user Teams account as an executive director and have members as guests? What are the pros and cons of this? So save it on the license fees.
Yeah, so you absolutely could do that. So you would be licensed and the others wouldn't. The biggest difference is that depending on how you set up Microsoft Teams on the back end in the admin center, it would change what kind of actions guest users can do. So for example, guest users may not be able to bypass the lobby when they're waiting for a call. Guest users would not be able to initiate a Teams meeting. You'd have to create all the meetings, but they could join the meetings. They would be able to join the chats, but you'd have to make sure, but they wouldn't be able to be an owner of any team because only a licensed person can own a team. but guests can be members of a team. So doing it that way could save you some money, and it might be useful, especially in a smaller organization. If you don't have a ton of people, it may not be of value, but they would be able to interact with anything that you set up as long as you set the permissions up to do that. And yeah, I completely agree that it could be amazing for the IEA board as well. And I'm seeing, oh, thank you, John, for providing the packages.
No
problem. Yeah, but the biggest con to it is just that the person who has the license would end up having to take more responsibility for managing things, because the guest users would have less ability to manage or add tabs or do those kinds of activities. That's the biggest downside to that. And again, depending on what kind of licensing you have, you may already have access to that. And again, with the business basic and the business standard, you're actually getting access to more than just Microsoft Teams. So with business basic and business standard, you get Teams, and then Exchange, which is Outlook. For email, you get OneDrive, you get SharePoint, and then you get Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And then, of course, you get desktop, publisher, and access with the business standard, in addition to a couple extra features in terms of how the team can work. Any other questions? I know we've got only about 7 minutes left.
I have a quick question just related to ease of use. I know I use a lot of different platforms, obviously, but sometimes I'm in a bit of a rush just to spin up a quick meeting. How easy is it to do that with MS Teams?
So I'm going to go to my calendar. I'm going to click on the time period I want the meeting to be. That's going to automatically pop up a new meeting. And then I can add a title and send who I want to that. Or, so if I want to schedule a quick meeting, I can just set it up. And they're often my guinea pigs, so I don't think they'll have a problem. Put my other information in and hit send. And I've got my scheduling assistant, so if I wanted, I could take a look and see, are they busy at the time that I've scheduled it? What does my calendar look like versus theirs? All that kind of stuff I can do right from Teams. The other thing that I can do is I can go plus new meeting up here, and it'll do the same thing, but it will ask me to set what my time scale for the meeting is. And finally, there's Meet Now. If I click Meet Now, it's actually it's just, what do you want to call it? And I start the meeting. And then I can actually just ping other people from my organization or that I have the email address for and say, hey, can I pull you into this quick meeting? I just need to have a chat. The other piece to that, in terms of if you're just meeting with somebody really quickly because you need to talk to them about something, if I've already got them as a contact, I can go to the calling, or if they're in my chat, I can find that person from that conversation and just click on an audio call. And when I start the audio call, I'll have the option if I want to add my video or not right away to that person. Another really neat feature from that meeting perspective is if I'm in a team, up here, I have the option to meet now, and it will actually, or schedule a meeting, and it will actually try to schedule the meeting with all of the with all of the people from that team. So if I start a meeting here, it's going to call everybody who's a member of this team to have a group meeting. So I can control group meetings that way. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. This was incredibly informative. I bet you have converted a couple of folks over to Team Microsoft Teams.
There's a lot to be said for what they can do.
I'll just pipe in one other thing too. If you do have any other questions at the Vancouver Executive Association, we have a sort of thing, just free 1 hour, just ask me anything kind of thing. If you have any questions about Teams or how do I do something, even little configuration things, or can it do this, give Tamara a call. We'll extend that sort of free offer to everybody in the International Executive Association membership as well. So if you just want to know if it can do something, just feel free to reach out. No charge. Just ask some quick questions and stuff like that. So
Absolutely. I find a lot of times people asked for something and were told no for so long that they just stopped asking and just assumed it was impossible. And what I've learned over the last 20 years is nothing's impossible. We just have to look at what the right approach is. And there's often a way to achieve various goals. We just need to know what those goals are. So thank you guys so much. And thank you for some insightful questions. And I know that was fast. It's a lot to cram into an hour, but thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Tamara. And remember, everyone, if you want to watch this again or share this with an employee or coworker or friend, it will be available on the IEA YouTube channel by the end of the week.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Happy holidays. Bye.
thank
Bye-bye.
you.